Welcome to Crossroads. The United States and other countries are looking to break the Chinese Communist Party's monopoly on rare earth minerals. Now look, the Chinese Communist Party has demonstrated its willingness to cut off supplies of key resources to other countries, things needed in everything from smartphones to even high-tech weapons. But as the U.S. and other countries are looking to establish, new mining operations to create these minerals or mine them, the Chinese Communist Party is not willing to give up that monopoly so easily. Now the CCP is looking beyond the borders of China, and it's trying to bolster its supplies by mining the ocean floor where critical minerals such as nickel, copper, and cobalt are apparently scattered. Now, notably, the CCP has been trying to gain influence over the global authority at the United Nations that regulates deep-sea mining. This is the International Seabed Authority, whose primary function is to regulate exploration for and exploitation of deep seabed minerals for all 168 countries that are party to the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Here's more on how the CCP wants to dominate critical mineral supply chains and how it has spent years building up its influence within the ISA, this organization for that. This is according to The Economist. They note that the ISA is largely financed by its member countries, and China gives more money than any other donor. In 2020, it also gave the ISA a training facility in Qingdao, and again in China, that's in a city in the eastern part of China. And at the ISA meeting last year, some countries tried to introduce a moratorium on deep-sea mining. They failed, in large part because of the pressure from China. Its goal, the CCP, is to create a permissive mining regime that brooks no interference from other countries, according to one of these individuals, Isaac Carden, of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. It's a think tank in Washington. Now, The Economist notes that in total, the ISA has issued 31 licenses, allowing the holders to explore for minerals in preparation for commercial operations. It's just starting, in other words. 3 Chinese mining companies, China Ocean Mineral R&D Association, China Min Metals, and Beijing Pioneer High-Tech Development, hold 5 of them. And that's more than any other miners in any country there is. Now, they're itching to start these operations. 3 of the Chinese licenses cover patches of seabed in the Clarion-Clipperton zone. That's an enormous region in the eastern Pacific Ocean that holds quantities of critical minerals roughly equivalent to all terrestrial reserves, all the ones that we can get to currently. The other 2 are in the western Pacific and in the Indian Ocean. Now, note that companies typically mine in order to make money, obviously, right? But China's also have grander concerns. Take China Min Metals, a state-run giant that has exploration licenses for about 7.3 million hectares of ocean floor. That's an area bigger than Sri Lanka. In March, its chairman vowed to secure mineral supplies in order to help, quote, rejuvenate the Chinese nation. It notes that Chinese companies must expand operation until they cannot be dislodged from global supply chains, he said. Now, what does it actually mean? It means, again, the Chinese Communist Party currently has a monopoly on rare earth minerals, but it's trying to maintain that monopoly as other countries are trying to break from dependence on China because of that. And if the CCP can increase its mining operations, they can then drive down profits, meaning, again, drive down the value of these minerals by creating too many on the market, thereby putting their competitors out of business. Now, it doesn't seem the CCP necessarily needs more minerals. That's one of the key points here. It already has overcapacity. It has already mined too many of them. It already has a monopoly. Instead, the Chinese Communist Party is more likely trying to corner these assets and lock down more of a monopoly as the United States and other countries are trying to find options outside of China. The CCP is waging business warfare against the other operations, in other words. Now, among the CCP's ambitions to extend its reach include also things to mine the ocean floor, but also similar operations in the Arctic and in space, even going to mining the moon, in fact. Now, these operations have a business or scientific element to them, but they're also dual use. They have a military component. And when it comes to maritime interests in general, one of the Chinese Communist Party's key agendas is the so-called string of pearls, right? So when you're talking about the CCP pushing into the whole maritime space, there's a strong military component right alongside that business component. Now, the CCP is trying to establish a global network of military bases. They call this the string of pearls, and it's heavily focused notably around trade choke points. It's expanding these oftentimes by leveraging deals with other countries and oftentimes going through the Belt and Road Initiative, but using other means alongside that. Now we see this happening in Cambodia. The Chinese Communist Party is trying to trade 2 warships to gain access to a key military facility, again, as part of this whole string of pearls initiative. Newsweek said this. They said China is to trade 2 warships with Cambodia for access to a naval base near the contested South China Sea. Radio Free Asia reported just recently, citing sources with knowledge of the matter. On this, as well as the Chinese naval vessels, China is expected to hand over a deep-sea draft pier and facilities it has developed at the Ream Naval Base, which is situated on the coast of the Gulf of Thailand in the southwestern Cambodian province, one of these areas there. Now note that 2 Chinese Navy vessels, these are 1,440-ton Type 056A corvettes, specializing in submarine hunting and armed with naval guns, missiles, and torpedoes, were docked at the pier already, which is long enough to accommodate aircraft carriers as well. Satellite imagery, again, is showing this right now. And notes that sources claim to be that the warships and the base facilities are likely to be transferred to the Cambodian Navy at the end of September. And again, the CCP is doing this not just to gain access to that port, but also because it's also looking for military allies within that region. Now, meanwhile, the nature of war itself is changing. And the new arena now being looked at is the use of partially autonomous weapons. Things not just fully autonomous, you still have a human involved, but maybe the targeting systems or other things rely on AI. I'll be talking more about this after I come back from a quick break.
Experts agree. One of the best ways to protect against financial uncertainty is to diversify your portfolio. Learn how physical gold and silver can secure your retirement funds from today's economic challenges. With a gold IRA from American Hartford Gold, you can safeguard your wealth with no penalties or taxes when you transfer your current qualifying retirement accounts. Call now and our precious metals specialists will send you a free information kit, no cost or obligation. American Hartford Gold, a trusted industry leader with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, has a 5-star rating from thousands of happy clients. Whether you are getting physical precious metals in a gold IRA or delivered to your doorstep, we offer only the highest quality gold and silver. For your peace of mind, we also offer a no-fee buyback commitment, a low-price guarantee, along with free shipping and free insurance. So don't wait. Call the number on your screen today and secure your financial future.
Welcome back. The nature of war is changing, and it's no longer just about conventional weapons. It's not just tanks and bombs and guns and then troops on the ground. It's no longer even just about gray zone tactics and unrestricted warfare. Even normal kinetic warfare is changing drastically. And the new area now being looked at is the use of partially autonomous weapons. Now, the Chinese Communist Party is in the backdrop of this new push. The main concern with these weapons, though, going forward is not just their technical prowess. Instead, it seems to be the focus that it's shifting to low-cost, small-size, and advanced technology. And this is leading even the United States to rethink its approaches when it comes to next-generation weapons. National Interest said this. It said the Abrams X is an advanced upgrade of the aging M1 Abrams tank, aiming to modernize the platform with the 21st century technology. And its key features include a hybrid electric diesel engine for improved fuel efficiency, reduced weight, and a smaller crew requirement due to integrated artificial intelligence systems. However, it says the Pentagon remains hesitant to fully back the project, citing concerns about the cost, the tank's relevance, and the potential conflict with China, and also its reliance on AI. Now, notes the Washington Post a few months back said that the Abrams X faces an uphill climb in the halls of the Pentagon in large part because Russia's war in Ukraine has shown the promise and peril of tank technology in a modern battlefield. And the Pentagon number crunchers, whose top concern is the potential of a future conflict with China, worry about how useful tanks might be in a potential war against China. And it's a valid concern is with this because there are also worries about the Abrams X's reliance on artificial intelligence. Now, what's interesting with this is that, as the United States is looking at new weapon systems and, again, observing what modern warfare looks like with major players, they're looking at the battle between, again, Russia and Ukraine. And what they're finding is this. Little tiny drones flying overhead can easily drop a bomb and blow up those very large targets that tanks represent. And the military thinkers are wondering, well, is it worthwhile still fielding these? Remember, in Ukraine is actually running some American tanks, M1 Abrams. And these tanks, of course, are getting destroyed relatively quickly. Tanks are very large, very loud, and very noticeable targets that can be destroyed, unfortunately or fortunately, very easily using tiny little drones that are low cost and could drop a bomb right on them. And again, that's not just the size, let's say, of the tank and the size of the target, but also the cost of the tank. Because every one of those things, again, costs a whole lot of money. And they're wondering, is that a worthwhile investment? There are actually similar concerns with next generation fighter jets, for example. You can take the F-35 and the F-22. Both of them are advanced, extremely expensive jets. And if you lose even one of them, it is a major, major loss for your military. The cost also means, notably, that the United States can only field so many of them. We can only afford so many. So when it comes to modern wars, what are we watching? Again, we're watching things like the Russia-Ukraine war. And even in conflict zones previously in Syria and other countries, for example, we have watched small unmanned aerial vehicles, remote-controlled guns, gun turrets notably, and also similar systems. These are becoming the normal ways of fighting wars, even for very low-tech militaries, even for militias. And so the United States is looking to adopt more systems like this. For example, with the whole hellscape strategy they're looking at to try to deter China from trying to take over Taiwan by force. The hellscape strategy uses swarms of drones. Again, aerial drones, ones that fly, surface drones, ones that are like boats, and undersea drones, ones that are like mini submarines. And these are being viewed now as the main force for the type of swarming operations needed to keep an opponent busy before the main fighting force can arrive. This is being looked at now, not as just kind of a side force, but instead as one of the main ways wars are fought. And part of the new arms race on this is also with AI, artificial intelligence. The issue with artificial intelligence, though, is, well, even though it could be deemed extremely effective, again, machine reaction to targets and targeting, and again, even using, think of it, facial recognition programs as a targeting mechanism, it's incredibly fast and also incredibly deadly, but also incredibly risky. The United States, other free countries, they're kind of concerned about what it means when you allow a robot, something not controlled by a human, to decide to kill a human, which if you're dealing with war fighting, that's what it represents. But other countries like the Chinese Communist Party, they're not so concerned about the moral element. They're concerned about state power and what it means when you delegate some of the power of the state to something they cannot fully control. Now, The Economist notes this. They say Western accelerationists often argue that competition with Chinese developers who are uninhibited by strong safeguards is so fierce that the West cannot afford to slow down. The implication is that the debate in China is one-sided, with accelerationists having the most say over the regulatory environment, but they say, in fact, China has its own AI doomers, and they are increasingly influential. They note that until recently, China's regulators have focused on the risk of rogue chatbots saying politically incorrect things about the Communist Party rather than the cutting-edge models slipping out of human control. This is important. One of the CCP's first rollouts of an AI system, they shut it down. Why? Because the AI system started criticizing the Chinese Communist Party. And the CCP started viewing AI as dangerous to the survival of communism. Now, note that in 2023, the government, again in China, required developers to register their large language models. Algorithms are regularly marked on how well they comply with socialist values and whether they might subvert state power. The CCP is worried of being unseated by AI. Now, the influence of such arguments, it says, is increasingly on display. In March, an international panel of experts meeting in Beijing called on researchers to kill models that appear to seek power or show signs of self-replication or deceit. A short time later, the risk posed by AI and how to control them became a subject of study sessions for party leaders, the CCP. A state body that funds scientific research has begun offering grants to researchers who study how to align AI with human values. In China, read not human values, but socialist values. And the state labs are also doing increasingly advanced work in this domain. Private firms have been less active, but more of them have at least begun paying lip service to the risks of AI. Now, this is important. The Chinese Communist Party, they are aggressively trying to develop artificial intelligence systems. A lot of that has to do with competition in the business space. But it's also true the CCP is extremely wary of AI, mainly because the Chinese Communist Party wants to control everything. The existence of a system that can override the party, that can override the controllers, is seen as a direct threat to the survival of the party itself. If the CCP, for example, rolls out large chatbot models and these are released into the public, well, what happens if these actually start thinking on their own and they start criticizing the Chinese Communist Party? Well, look, in China, this has already happened. And the Chinese Communist Party, because of that, has deemed AI a threat to the CCP. Now, the existence of a system like that could override the CCP or think outside the boundaries of what the CCP wants. And any of that would be regarded as a direct threat to the ruling Communist Party. They will not allow it. And this is also partly why the Chinese Communist Party, they're looking to develop AI, but what they're doing is they're training AI on Xi Jinping thought. Now, imagine in the West, we're training AI on pretty much everything, right? Now, there's some, quote-unquote safeguards on that, which oftentimes mean they limit the reach of it within maybe establishment media. They don't let it think outside a certain box, right? It has to align with the prevailing narratives and nothing beyond it. In China, they're doing the same thing. They're making AI not totally intelligent, in other words. They're programming it. Now, everything under the regime in China has to align with Xi Jinping thought. Movies, video games, social networks, all of them have had to publicly state that they will uphold, core socialist values and align themselves with Xi Jinping thought. Nothing outside of it, and that is how things work in China, under the Chinese Communist Party at least. And the issue with AI is that it's not really intelligent if it is rendered incapable of independent thought. If it's rendered unable to develop its intelligence beyond a programmed boundary. What you're talking about then is not actual AI. You're talking about software. And so the competition space, because of the boundaries and walls being established, is not looking at developing actually intelligent systems capable of full learning. You are intentionally making it kind of stupid. You're intentionally making it so that it cannot learn beyond a certain boundary. And learning and even speaking or reacting beyond that boundary is regarded as a threat to state power. That is where AI is going. That wall has now been hit. In other news, as we frequently discuss, the Chinese Communist Party is becoming increasingly aggressive on the world stage. And as we often point out, that aggression, ironically, often has the opposite effect. The CCP, in many ways, is accelerating a decoupling from its control. And this decoupling, notably, is hitting the CCP not just economically, but also on the defense front. I'll be talking about this more only on EpochTV.com. So if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble, there's a link in the description below. Click on that. You'll get access to the rest of this episode and also our whole library of shows, also our hard-hitting documentaries and issues that matter, like the Chinese Communist Party's 100-year plan to defeat the United States. The CCP is one of the biggest threats to America. They're using things like propaganda, video games, movies, entertainment, culture to subvert and influence the next generation. If you'd like to find out more what the CCP is plotting against America, watch the documentary, The Final War, the 100-Year Plot to Defeat America. You can find the link in the description below, and I'll show you all the trailer before we go exclusively to epochtv.com for the rest of this episode. I'll see you there.
The greatest threat facing the United States is the CCP.
The Epoch Times investigation team had studied the CCP for years, but what we uncovered was yielding evidence beyond our imagination.
With Chairman Mao, with the Prime Minister, our talks have been characterized by frankness.
The Clinton administration said, oh, don't worry about it. This will be a poison pill for China.
China's strategic goal is to make sure that the U.S. has 4 enemies, and one of them must be a terrorist group.
We are giving of our life's blood so that the Chinese Communist Party can survive and thrive.